The shit you put out online, one, it has a real consequence, right? That's important to be mindful of as you start to build an audience.
Brands and individuals, they're always saying, like, I'm not interesting. We're not doing interesting stuff. Not every single day has to be like interesting, or you need this like Mr. Beast style hook.
I feel like people miss this fact a lot. Still is a social platform. This was super fun. Let's jump in.
This week on the Brandfathers, we have a super exciting guest and interview. We are talking to Marcus Milione, who runs a brand called Minted. Now, Marcus is someone that Jordan, Oren, and I have followed for a long time. He was kind of the poster child of building in public and sharing the behind the scenes, the journey of building a brand from a short form social standpoint. So in this interview, Jordan and I are going to get into it with him, talking about what his journey looked like leaving finance to starting this brand, how he went from jewelry to creating runwear to $1,200 coats to supplements, and how all of that fits in the world of Minted, what large brands and marketers can learn from creator-led brands and creating high production content on pretty low budgets with not too many people involved. And then what Marcus thinks about is he thinks about the evolution of creating content with commerce and building brands and all the opportunities that opens up. So thank you, dude. I know you have a super busy day, and I know you have a busy day because I see in a lot of your content how you document the day. And so appreciate you taking the time talking to us and everyone listening just about Minted and how you built this. So I want to start with kind of some of the foundation of you building Minted. And I probably started watching your content maybe 2022. I was like creating content on TikTok for a brand of my own. And there was a very small universe of creators who were building brands and creating content on TikTok and getting some traction with it. But I went back. It sounds like some of Minted started in 2021, but you were creating content even before that. So I'd love to hear just a little bit of your background of what were you doing prior to Minted? When did you start Minted? What was the evolution, or what was the evolution of that?
Yeah, so I guess like just, strictly work speaking, I was working on the debt side of commercial real estate here in New York City for a bank, mainly funding healthcare real estate transactions, the nice boring stuff.
Yeah, bro. We've been
And
through your LinkedIn. It's a fascinating evolution from where you were to where you are. Very
yeah,
cool.
on that point, and like for other people listening too, I think we get caught up, especially when we're younger, like plotting out this plan, like this grand scheme of like I'm gonna end up here when I'm X number of years old. And as great as that is, and I think it's awesome to work towards stuff, you never know what is going to come along the way, and sometimes you just kind of have to take what's given and play the hand you're dealt. So, look, I was doing that. COVID kind of starts. People in the office just start getting like sick, and no one knows what's going on. So they told us to take a Friday and a Monday off. And my brother, who works at Minted now, but was a paralegal at the U.S. Attorney's Office downtown, had the same thing happening. So we took it as like an opportunity to go visit our parents in Virginia for a long weekend. I brought two changes of clothes and ended up staying there for a year.
Wow.
And kind of over this period you're working from home, and it's great. The whole entire family was under one roof for the first time in a really long time, since I guess my sister went to college. And that's wonderful, but you get kind of bored. I'm in the suburbs, like Northern Virginia, and started creating content mainly just around stuff I was passionate about. Fitness. A lot of the fitness stuff was way more gym focused than any of the running stuff you see now, because I wasn't a runner. And fashion, those being the two primary things. And I guess from like a content perspective in the fashion space, like I was very much still learning about my personal style, and along this way documenting it and kind of trying to teach people how I'm viewing things, or like lessons I'm learning in building the outfits that I was posting online. And kind of like the first place that it even ever got traction was Reddit. Believe it or
Interesting.
not, like Reddit, there was a subreddit called Streetwear that there's some posts on, and then it transitioned kind of more to just like Instagram fit pics, that were kind of all the rage and whatever that was, 21, 22. Yeah, the content just kind of grew with that. And then the business spawned because I had two 18-inch sterling silver chains on that I would wear in all of my content. And kind of back then, they're super mainstream now, but kind of back then, 18-inch chains on guys were hard to come by. And the ones you could find were generally geared toward women. So the chain width was super small, dainty, and they would end up just popping. So I had to go to the diamond district here in the city and make two thicker silver chains. I didn't know what I was doing, and had those, was wearing them, and people kept asking for them. So I was like, this could be something we could replicate, and that was the genesis.
So this is 2021, right?
hmm
At this point, you'd been kind of making content for what, a year or so?
I would say around a year-ish, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, a lot of those early videos are you talking about kind of running, health and fitness, but also these like, I would see you do a lot of replies to comments where people would be like, ID on the pants, ID on the tank, ID on the necklace. And you'd like do this breakdown on it. So it was like, you're kind of this like, you know, you're like the dye workwear of TikTok for your own personal style.
Yeah. Look at that
Um,
hair, man. Jeez.
so you're kind of like pretty consistent about this content. You say, okay, people are asking me about my chain enough. There aren't like great options for these 18-inch chains, so I'm gonna go make it. Now you go and make it, and walk me through this process of you're in the diamond district. You're like, okay, well, these guys are asking for minimum order quantities. How many do I
Mm.
make? Am I starting a brand? Am I starting a business? Do I have an audience that's going to buy it? Like, what was your calculus? Like, what were you thinking? How were you planning this stuff?
Oh, I mean, in the beginning, like there was no, I didn't care about making any money. I was buying this stuff like retail and just like selling
Yep.
it pretty much retail. Like I was just like, oh, like there was no there was no quantity breaks, like no pricing breaks. I mean, I started with I think it was like 7 or 10 packs of two chains.
Yep.
So like total units, I'm not buying much. And as it like evolved, we had a couple of those releases that were just jewelry, and as it evolved, I started to realize like, okay, we're gonna grow out of doing it in the Diamond District fast because the demand is like super strong, and immediately kind of just moved over to Italy. Got linked with the manufacturer I currently use to this day, and that's where like obviously price breaks and minimums kind of came into play. I
Hmm.
had to beg a little bit about the potential of the business, I guess, to them. I had to kind of sell the story. I was like, I can't hit the minimums yet, but
Hmm.
I need you to kind of trust me here that we'll be okay in the long run. And it was like COVID, right? There were no supplier terms. And you're dealing in precious metals, so they have much bigger clients, but everything with COVID was kind of getting messed up. So I think it opened like a very small window for me to get in without meeting minimum order quantities there, and then be able to grow into, you know, a much larger player for them. And the greatest feedback I got after my first real production run with them was like, oh, you're moving more units than like our bigger clients right now. So I was like,
Wow.
okay, well, like that's good on their end and like helps the relationship a lot. And I was submitting reorders like really quickly. So yeah, I mean, look, part of it's just luck.
Sure.
You're in the right place at the right time, and you kind of capitalize, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of part
Yes,
of it.
it is luck, but you're creating. And I think, creating the surface area of opportunity for good things to happen. I'm actually very curious because I feel like you're known as the TikTok. That's certainly where I discovered you and the brand. But you were saying that you actually started to get traction on Reddit first. We're going to talk about content because we love it. Like, can you say a bit more about that? Like you're getting traction on Reddit and it wasn't as much TikTok, and then TikTok was kind of the secondary. Can you talk about that content evolution and the traction?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was some like grand master plan that I had, and I was like, I'm gonna do this like X, Y, and Z. Like it's weird now looking back, and you see kind of like content strategy that people deploy. I was just posting because like I love this shit. So I there was a community, that community was much more active there, and I was like, oh, this would be also a good way to continue to learn because I'm sure there's people here that can critique whatever I'm wearing. And so it was like the streetwear subreddit, but I think my style wasn't very street, right? Like it was a different look. I like to play around with a lot of like 50s, 60s, 70s silhouette type looks and just like be able to wear them in a more casual setting. So I think it was something new there that hadn't been posted all that much, and people really seemed to like it. And I think there was transfer over from that posting there to Instagram, even though I think there's like rules around like linking to your socials on those type of communities, which totally understand. But people ended up finding me, and there was crossover, and that was kind of where it all started. And then I kind of backed off posting there because it seemed like people were more interested in certain types of this more traditional streetwear in the sense of the word. The word's kind of been misconstrued by now, but and then just stuck to Instagram.
So you're across these platforms, you're getting demand for the jewelry itself. You are still working in commercial real estate and then kind of
Yes.
creating content and making jewelry and fulfilling orders on the side. Like what is that setup and what did your day look like back then?
So I was working from home. I was the whole first year on TikTok, and when I started posting, I went into it with the mindset of I'm gonna see what happens if I post 3 videos a day for 365 straight days. Like, why not? Right? I got time on my hands. It's COVID. So I'd post like one video in like mid-afternoon. And a lot of them, like you had mentioned, were just replying to comments. See, in the beginning, when you go to the really old videos, it's just me walking down the street because I would go on these 30-minute walks at lunch, and I would
Well,
just be walking down the
yeah.
street talking to the camera.
I was
And
just thinking about this the other day. I'm sorry, just to pause. I'm like, remember when everybody used to go for a walk in the pandemic? Like it was, I mean, y'all are in New York, so I'm in Texas. And I remember that time frame of like walks were very much a thing. But yes, please go on.
yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to do, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
I have one. I do want to stop you there real quick. Like what you said, if I can post 3 times a day,
mm,
what is is there something churning in your head? You've had like a couple videos go viral, or you've heard like, I don't know, Gary Vee or some social media expert say this, or are you just like, you seem like you do like a challenge and numbers like that lends itself to running and
yeah.
fitness and all that. So like, can you say a bit more about that? What was swimming in your head when you set that goal?
I think it was kind of there was no like I said there was no real master plan, but it was I am very much like arbitrary goals. Like these numbers technically mean nothing, but you just put them down and you start chasing after them, like running specifically. Um, so it was just something that if I started it, I wanted to see it all the way through and then kind of decide along the way, maybe, pivot or like what do I want to do with this if there does start to be an audience that forms. And, you know, for the in the beginning, I went a lot of videos where it was just nothing. Like I was just talking to the void, right?
Yep.
You're just talking to the void, and
Yep.
you didn't have the luxury of responding to comments because there were no
There were
comments,
none.
right? And like
We've all been there.
and like videos did not go viral. Like there was no viral hits, nothing. So it was literally just like you're picking up maybe one or two people along the way and they're interested in the content, and that's what was awesome because you're super connected to everybody at that point, and I loved that. Now it's hard to stay that connected because like in the beginning you can respond to everybody's DMs and all that stuff and that communication is there, but now, you know, one DM for me or yeah, 10 DMs for me that I answer is one conversation for that person, but 10 conversations for me. So it's like
Yep.
you start to really get spread super thin. So, looking back, I was probably frustrated that there weren't a lot of comments to respond to, but it was nice to be able to like interact on a deep level with some of those people.
Totally. I think that's actually like, I would just double click. It's a passion point for me, I think, as a creator. Even in the early days of Instagram, which was like square 1 by 1 photos, I remember people like, even when I'd be with these other content creators and we would be trying to like go get some really great photo that would be a banger, and they would spend all this time to try to garner reaction and comments and likes and then not respond to people. And I feel like the social media, I feel like people miss this fact a lot. And I do think you're a great representation of this, that it still is a social platform, regardless of whether it's an algorithm driven now, but people are trying to connect. And I think this point of like responding to every comment, responding to every DM, I've been feeling this deeply recently. Like that's kind of gotten me to where I am today, but now I'm like really struggling to be able to respond to every DM.
Same.
Our co-host Oren is like, y'all are insane for even trying, but I think Ashwin and
He's
I have a
right
lot of
though.
fun. Yeah,
Like,
I agree. It's hard but it's also fun. Like I've heard people say the content is in the comments.
mm,
And anyway, it's great. So okay, continue. You're doing 3 a day. Is there a
3 a
light
day.
bulb moment? Is there something? Is there a breakthrough at some point? Is it on day 100? Is it on day 180? Is it 364? Or what did you learn from that process?
I mean, well, you do kind of pick up and you start to learn like, oh, the way you start the video on this particular video seemed to grab the attention of people, and like you start to just have general pattern recognition of like, because you're putting out so much volume. It's like it's reps like anything else, and there was no like, I was never trying to become like some super big social media influencer. I didn't like that wasn't really on the list of things I wanted to become. But I'd always loved entrepreneurship. So when I saw that there was like a correlation between uh, jewelry releases going well and like social content, I was like, oh, this is an interesting dynamic here. And that's when it became more like, okay, this is a tool. It can be used as a tool, but you can also build these interesting communities on these tools. And there was real no light bulb moment other than like the releases start doing well, and then eventually, it's so big and so time consuming that I have to quit my job, and that's when it was like,
How
all
long was
right.
that? When was
That
that?
was 8 months into Minted. So Minted started Jan 1 of 2021.
Mhm.
So what is that? August. It's like
Yeah.
by August.
So
By
in
August we were on like probably release number 6 or 8. I don't know, something like that.
Okay, so you're on release 6 or 8, then there's enough demand. You have this audience. Every release that you do, it sells out, sells super well. And you make this decision, okay, I want to. And at this point, is all of the demand coming from content itself, or have you branched into other things, whether it's paid or any gifting, or is it just, no, it's
Oh
me
no,
making content, it all comes from
yeah,
here.
all from me. We have to this day haven't gifted anybody.
Yep,
Well, I guess technically Saucony did with our 2 shoes, but
sure.
that was like handled by them. Um, and no paid. We didn't start paid until like a couple months ago, and it's just me
Cool.
messing around in like
Sure.
Facebook Ad Manager.
Sure.
So yeah,
Okay.
this is all just like personal driven.
All right, so I'll come back to the paid thing because that's a kind of conversation I want to talk about. But you decide to quit your job, and at this point, is the business going to fund your life in the cheapest city in America?
Yeah. Well, I mean that was the conversation I had with my dad, right? Because it's risky. But I got very blessed with my parents, and my dad is a risk taker.
Hmm.
So like we looked at it objectively from like a number standpoint, and we mapped out, well, if the business can do X amount of revenue over the next 3 months,
Sure.
then take the leap. You're young, you have no dependence. Like, if it blows up, it blows up. And I got like the best stamp of approval from my old boss. He was like, if it blows up in your face, I'll hire you back. And so I
Yeah.
was like,
That's incredible.
risk free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so we had that conversation, and like a week or two later we had a release mid-August or whatever, and we did all 3 of that month's combined revenue in like 1 hour or like a day.
Wow.
So I remember looking over at my dad and I was like, I guess I'll put in my 2 weeks and that'll be that.
Okay, so question now, because this is the stuff that's like happening. You're talking about you're doing content, it's not cutting through. At what point do you start doing like documenting, like, hey, we've ordered this much inventory, it's shown up, it's not, or it's selling out in an hour? Because I feel like, at least in all conversations that I have with a lot of brands and everything, like you're kind of the poster child of the build in public,
Hmm.
short form social, building an entrepreneurship. And I'm curious, like, when did you start sharing that journey from the jump, or was it eventually? And like, what of that content cuts through? Because I can see in the early stages, it may not be very compelling. You know, like it's exciting right now to hear this because
Mm.
we see your success, but like back then it might just be like, well, I don't know. It may flop, it may not.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like it was completely unsexy, but my viewpoint was if I was a viewer, I want to see all parts of this because, obviously everybody on social media makes it seem like this glamorous, amazing thing, but that shit sucks in the beginning. Like it's
Yes.
hard. You're doing a lot of stuff and you're stretched super thin as an individual. And like there's a lot of times where you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, this is gonna blow up in my face because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. But like that's what I wanted to document because that was the content that I felt I wanted to watch. So it was like every single part of the business I had to document. Like one of our biggest shipments for December 2021 release, one of our biggest releases of that year was stuck off the port in COVID because there was like a union strike, or maybe it was like people couldn't work because of COVID. I don't know. Something happened
Yes.
off the port of
Yes.
LA where our
Yes.
shit could not get in, and
The
all
Long
the
Beach strike. Yes.
yes. And all the boats that are jumping ahead are like the boats carrying the Apple phones because they're paying to get their shit. So we're just sitting there, and I remember thinking to myself like, all right, I got some of this on credit cards. Like I got 30 days before stuff starts to go bad. Yeah, this kind of sucks. But I made videos about it because like that is the reality that people need to see. It's not like this super glamorous thing all the time. And I think people resonated with that because it wasn't like there wasn't that much type of content out there, so people would find it and they'd be like, all right, well this dude's actually trying, I guess. Like this is his journey and his brand that he's building. And I also, selfishly, I guess, in the back of my head wanted like, okay, if this brand does build it, like if I can build it and we can, make it eventually, I'll have all this content in like backlog to look back on and be like, wow, we really did like build it from nothing. So,
Okay, I just have
yeah.
one specific question here, Ashwin. I'll stop in just a second. But like the so I left Nike 3 years ago, and it was like very scary and all that. But similar. I didn't have physical products necessarily. I've dabbled in that, but like I have found as a content creator at times, I've recognized the insight that like people want to see the journey at times.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, like, when I am full of anxiety or frustrated and sometimes frustration, like enragement equals engagement sometimes, but like when you're sort of shriveling into like anxiousness or whatever, it's not exactly real compelling. And so I'm curious, like, did you have Sam? I want to talk about Sam coming on as like, y'all's cinematographer, videographer at some point. Did you have that? Did you have accountability from your brother, or are you just like, hey, I'm going to record this and we're going to do it good or bad and we'll see, and I'm not going to worry about a hook or all that?
Oh yeah, no, I like the hook shit. I still don't even look at. I mean, you see it, you top 100 hooks like to use in your whatever. I don't use any of that. I just start talking. And I think it kind of harks back to like I just put arbitrary goals in place and then I have to do them. So if it's post 3 videos a day, you gotta post every day. You gotta post those 3 videos a day, and it doesn't matter what you feel like. It's the same like with training. You feel like shit half the time. You still have to get out there and do your work. So it's ultimately just like a, I don't know, sheer will maybe type thing. But but there are days where it's like, wow, I don't want to put a camera in my face. Like I have nothing to talk about. I'm the most uninteresting person on the planet. Like you have those conversations. That's just how it is.
So I think there's something interesting there, like in what you just said. So number one, I think there's a few things. Number one, a lot of the content that you were creating was kind of talking to yourself because it's the kind of content you wish you had, but there just wasn't it out there, right? Like how many guys were going from finance into manufacturing jewelry and then talking about like how to source things and like bring them overseas and then start selling them. So you're kind of like documenting that process for yourself, but in a way almost like informing a future you. Someone wants to like go do this similar thing. And I think Jordan takes a very similar approach with his content and is explicit about that, right? He wants to make kind of marketing and sports marketing content and insight and interest that he didn't have himself. And, I'm a very similar way with all the things I talk about, but in many ways, I'm talking to myself. I think we're all
Mm.
kind of like talking to ourselves. And that's something that I always say to like content creators is like, don't think about what you think an audience wants, just like think about what you want to hear, like what you find compelling to yourself. And so I think like that's one theme that I've seen in kind of all of your content here. But I think the second thing is when I look at like a lot of your I don't even want to call it behind the scenes content because it's just like, dude, this is just like me building this business day after day. And it's like, I wake up, I run with my brother, we go run at a fucking suicide pace. And then I come back home and then I'm like dealing with shit on Shopify. I'm dealing like 3PL warehouse stuff. The bones of it, like if I told you a story like, hey, I woke up, I ran, I talked to our 3PL, I did Shopify, I went to sleep, I ate dinner, I went to sleep. It's like, all right, that's not like a super compelling story, but you guys like shoot that in a video and then it becomes like pretty interesting, right? And it's
Mm.
like people are engaged and it like builds this community. And so I think my observation for that is like brands always say, like brands and individuals, they're always saying like, I'm not interesting. We're not doing interesting stuff. And I think it's just like not every single day has to be like interesting or you need this like Mr. Beast style hook or like some high drama. You could
Mm.
just talk about the thing that you're doing and like naturally over time you kind of like compound an audience. I'm curious, like, does that jive with like how you think about the content yourself? Because you kind of said like I don't pay attention to hooks. Like, are you thinking about the algo? Are you thinking about the content style? Do you have like signature series? Or are you like, dude, we're documenting stuff, we're making it look cool, and like that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just like a documentation thing, and I think like I'm pretty sure it's Walt Disney that said like storytellers pretty much rule the world, right? Like, and in every single moment of your life, there's like a story around that, regardless of how mundane it might be to you. But it's mundane to you because you lived it. Like you've already
Mhm.
seen it a million times over in your head, right? But you know, you haven't lived it, and neither has Jordan. So like it could be interesting depending on how you package it for
Mhm.
them to watch, right? And if it like is something that I would watch on my own For You page, there's got to be someone else out there like me that wants to watch it, right?
Mhm.
And then just take that and explode it to 7 billion people on the planet, and there's got to be a decent audience there for you. And then how many times are you scrolling videos and you see the comment section? They're like, "Oh, I don't even work in molecular
Yeah.
engineering, but I'm watching you like do stuff with molecules." Like, I watch those videos. I have no business like even opining on that information, and I like the content. So, it doesn't have to be necessarily like groundbreaking stuff all the time. And I think like on the YouTube stuff, we I specifically approached it with Sam and with the team here uh, on like anti Mr. Beastification of our videos. I don't
Mhm.
want any of that shit, right? I
Mhm.
just want it to be like you're watching an episode that like Netflix would produce on
Mhm.
a business.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think similar to Ashwin's question, I've looked at y'all's YouTube and I found it really interesting. It doesn't seem like you're obsessing thumbnails and they kind of vary, they're different. And it doesn't seem like you're necessarily going like crazy viral on a lot of these, but you have like extremely consistent numbers. Like it
Mm.
seems like y'all have 38,000 views on every video,
Yeah.
which is, I think
A
there's
ton
something to
of
be said.
comments. Yeah.
Yeah, tons of comment. Like that's a very loyal audience. I'm curious if you can say any more about that, or if that seems to check from the outside.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the state of our YouTube channel, and I think the hard thing is, and we're on a 2 a month cadence every other week. Um, the hard thing is a lot of our life is extremely repetitive, and a lot of it is just doing a lot of work, and that work's not always interesting, as we were just talking about. So it's nice when we have things to break it up, like factory visits or races that we're running, but we do struggle sometimes with like, well, we just spent an entire week staring at computer screens for 12 hours a day, so not sure what we're really going to do there. But at the same time, you can always find things, and luckily we work with Sam. He's really good at packaging stuff up and telling a story and doing his side of the creative process with that. But we don't. we don't really look at how to maximize the virality of our videos because ultimately I don't really think they're viral videos, but that's fine, right? Like I think the right people watch them and that's all that really matters. Regarding the thumbnails, I make the thumbnails and I kind of just mess around with it. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm sure there's ways to like make better thumbnails, but it's I just mess with it and if it looks good, I'll just put it up there.
It does look good. You're doing a great job.
On that point of kind of talking about some of the YouTube, and even if I look at like the evolution of some of the content, right? First, it was like, hey, me, Marcus, face the camera, I'm walking around off the dome. There's like no editing, no color grading, nothing. Then there's this like more like behind the scenes and like a lot of like reply comments, and it's still you, but like the shoots and the cuts, it's like that pattern recognition develops and like all of that content gets better. And then now when I look at a lot of the YouTube content, it's like, oh, this is beautiful. You know, it's like it's
Mm,
color graded, the shots, the scenes. Like I watch one of those videos and as someone who's like, you know, creates content, has a brand, I look at that, I'm like, damn, that looks expensive. Like that shoot looks expensive. It looks like there's a big team involved. Can you share some of that? Because you're still like a smaller brand, like revenue aside, like just headcount wise, you guys are like a smaller
yeah.
brand. So how do you think about the cost that goes into that? And is it a big production team? Is it a small production team? What is the turnaround from shoot to like actually getting something live?
Production team is just Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to chat about Sam, but yeah, this is a great segue. Just
He's
yeah,
hyper talented, like really,
seems like
really
it.
talented. And you know, we first started working with him at the beginning of last year, and I kind of pitched the idea to him. We had done like a four-part series leading up to New York City Marathon, and then I had pitched the idea to him of why don't we just continue this every 2 weeks for the year and see what happens. And he was into it. He was a customer of the brand first. Like he had one of like our original hats that we had ever dropped, whatever. So that was super cool. It was also cool that he was affiliate like what's the word I'm looking for? He was familiar with the
Hmm.
brand, right? He was familiar with the brand voice and like what we were doing. Um, but yeah, he is shoots and edits himself, and that's it. Sometimes on the bigger stuff, like a race recap video, we'll have to pull in second or third shooter just because he can't track us, you know, as much. But for the most part, the bi-weekly stuff is just him, and from a team perspective, full time it's just me, Sean, and Clay here in the city. My sister is part-time. She handles a lot of our customer support requests
Hmm.
via email. And then we also have Angie, who is a part-time designer who joined us recently. So
Hmm.
pretty small.
And okay, so that's amazing. And then how do you think about you know, whatever cost or investment it is? It's really an investment. Like whatever
Hmm.
investment it is with Sam and the time it takes you guys to like storyboard or like think of the story, package it up, edit it, promote it, whatever. Yeah, how do you just like think about that investment? And I ask this from the sense of like a lot of brands might be hearing this and say, hey, okay, I watched that video. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like $4,000 a shoot or something. Let me just like toss out a number. I could spend that 4 grand and go run Facebook ads where I make 7K and 8K in revenue off of that. How do you guys like think about whatever that number is for creating content with Sam?
I tried to kind of do some deep thinking on that before like starting the series,
Hmm.
and it kept just coming back to a gut feeling, and it felt like the right thing to do. Um, and is it expensive? Is it hard to track like a return on it? Yes, but it's not really about the return
Hmm.
on the investment. I don't really look at it like that. It's about continuing to build a community, and you know, everything else will kind of pan out as it pans out, but it's a very, very long-term play. Like I think, you know, the YouTube long form video stuff I view as like a 5-10 year play. I don't really care about return right away, and yeah, it's like I kind of equate it to YouTube and that kind of stuff. Money spent there goes very deep, right? Like it's a very deep emotional connection and commitment that people are having when watching those videos, right? Anybody sitting down and spending 10 to 12 minutes of their life's hours to watch a video, that's like a very deep connection. Put that same money behind like a Facebook ad, it's like, oh, you stopped their scroll for like 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Sick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you made a sale, like, revenue's good, right? You got to pay bills and keep the lights on, pay employees, but I want to build a lasting brand, not like I'm not just chasing some revenue number.
Yeah, I think I think to your point, number one, more brands need to think about that because everyone, like in the pursuit of measuring every investment, let's lose the term investment because it's just like everyone's measuring ROI just naturally when you say investment. And it's like, we just can't with the YouTube video. Like, how do we do it? Right. And so it kind of requires someone at the head like you says, hey, I have a gut feeling that this is going to work. But me as an observer of your content, when I see the outcomes of it, I see that you guys do pop-ups like downtown Manhattan. And before you open, you have 300 people in line. And it's like some of the same people in the front of the line. You build this loyalty. So that to me, it's like you see the effect of the compounding that loyalty from putting out content, like building this investment or relationship with people. I wonder if we can talk about that a little bit. I know you've done definitively at least one pop-up, probably multiple pop-ups, right? Three. Okay. So
Yep.
how have those how have those performed? Have there been any like surprising learnings or like interactions of people coming into those?
Yeah, so the first one was kind of pre-New York City Marathon in 2023, and it was an interesting pop-up kind of looking back at it because there was like the marathon stuff that we had, right? But we also had like a menswear collection.
So, a quick break as Marcus is talking about selling online and exploring pop-ups. As brands want to make that shift from D2C to selling into retail, they work with a group like Platform, which is a sponsor of the Brandfathers. Now, retail is a entirely different beast than selling online. You need deep connections, relationships, understanding how your branding and packaging has to be updated to sell well in retail. So working with a group like Platform can really set you up for success in making sure that you don't just get into stores, but you start selling in stores. So check out Platform. They're at One Platform. We link to them in the show notes.
So like front of the store, marathon stuff, running stuff, and then back of the store was like menswear that we had worked on. And it was just a really cool time. It was like the first menswear collection that Clay had worked on. We flew him in because he was still part-time in school. And, as I think the first time Sean, Clay, and I got to see in person the effect of everything that we work on in the day-to-day. And it was incredibly overwhelming. It was 2-day pop-up, lines like 2-3 hours deep both days. And I laid down in bed after the second day and remember thinking to myself, like, I was just kind of floored because you have like a sense of how you're impacting people, but then I spent both of those days the entire time standing having like conversations with people coming through the store, and some of these conversations were long conversations, and they're kind of letting you know how the brand has impacted them, or how they've maybe picked up running or had better habits because they were watching our content. And it's like, okay, the shit you put out online, one, it has a real consequence, right? Like, and that's important to be mindful of as you start to build an audience. And the second thing is like, okay, the brand outside of whatever we build means something to people. And so that was like the takeaway from the first pop-up. It was a wonderful experience, super stressful. I went into it like, I hope we break even. So like there wasn't a whole lot of, we didn't know.
Sure.
You don't know what you don't know, so you're kind of just winging it. Second pop-up was the release of our first shoe with Saucony. Now, this shoe, I didn't know the product development cycle of a shoe with Saucony. So I talked about our first sample when I got it in hand, not knowing that it was going to be like 2 years.
18 months. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw,
like,
yeah, I wanted to ask you about this. Keep going.
So what I didn't realize was there was this like pent up demand like building, brewing underneath. And every time I talked about it like an idiot, it got bigger and bigger. And didn't really know it was going to take 18 months, but eventually we got a pop up. We had that, and again, more of the same. Like we wrapped like down one block, down the other, and it was like starting to come around the block a little bit. So, I mean, that was awesome. I think it opened us up to entire new community of people, like more people that are into the sneaker space. Like I'm not a super huge sneakerhead, but I like sneakers, I like loafers, stuff like that. But that community really liked it, and that was wonderful. They were people there to resell them. There were people there like collectors of like Saucony shoes. You just meet a whole bunch of people, and it's much of the same from the first pop up. I'm just kind of talking, but a lot of these people had like people were flying in because they had been following the development of the shoe for 2 years, and so you're talking to them, and they're like, yeah, well, I've been wanting to get this shoe for 2 years, and it's a wild experience. And then the third pop-up was kind of similar, but it was a running shoe this time. And that like by pop-up number 3, you kind of have a lot of stuff like smoothed out. things that go wrong in the first two kind of inform the third. And yeah, again, I think this was the first time I saw both sides of the Minted community, like the people that just know us as a running brand or like a running focused brand, kind of merge with people that are either into the menswear or just the sneaker side, because there are people there that just wanted the sneakers to not even run in, even though they were a running shoe, and that to me was awesome to see people wear them in a more casual setting is sick. I think that's like I remember talking with Saucony, and they were like, well, that's like the coolest metric for us to even like talk about internally, because we have never really bridged that gap before. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it was awesome.
I'm curious what you think, like having worked at a big brand and working with a lot of big brands now. I think you are this great case study of building in public and bringing your audience along for the journey. And as Ashwin was saying earlier, I think it's a little bit, I do want to ask you about the separation between yourself and your brother and the brand itself, but like, what do you think Saucony learned from y'all in this process of like building in public 2 years out? Is there anything that they shared that they learned, or what do you think brands can learn from y'all?
Well, if you're gonna learn from me, I'd say don't talk about the shoe 2 years out, because it puts a lot of pressure on a lot of things, and you will have nonstop DM and support email requests for when is the shoe coming. So that's why
Got it.
we have a running shoe coming that's in the works, but we haven't shown it or anything. So I'm trying to keep it a little more under wraps so we don't have to deal with that. But yeah, I think Saucony's been a great partner, and one of the greatest things they've done is Jason, who is like the guy we deal with. He's from the sneaker world, like he gets that shit, but he also ran Extra Butter, like he started Extra Butter. So this is a guy who really understands this stuff, and he would go and pretty much give us free reign to do what we do, and talk about the shoe, market the shoe, where maybe traditionally it's kept under embargo a little bit longer, stuff like that. So he fought some fires for us internally, I think, and it ended up working out, and we kind of you have to prove yourself as a partner, so I think we did a good job there.
This is
They've been
Jason
wonderful to
Palestino.
work with. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been connected with him, I think, from a mutual friend, but that's great. And I think he would, having seen some of the stuff y'all were doing, like he would definitely be having to advocate internally, to fight some of those traditional political battles of like, yo. But I think the thing that was interesting to me is that you take your traditional playbook, and maybe you're learning like why sneaker companies do that playbook, but it's like, okay, you build something in public, you sort of make an announcement, and then you do this tease phase, and you show a little bit of the color and you show a little bit of the silhouette, and then it's like, bam, you drop it at some big pop-up. And I thought it was really interesting, though, how you are sharing sample, renderings, from the original. And so I think there's, a place for both. It sounds like you're saying, but I thought it's really interesting to see those renderings because I've been on the other side where you're looking at them on a keynote deck for years and you're doing samples and you're internal and it's very much like, do not bring a camera into this room. Don't document that. We started to even not document those things at Nike because
Hmm.
they might get leaked. And so I don't know. It's interesting to hear those challenges that you're talking about, but too much demand perhaps is a problem, but it's a
Look,
quality problem.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's a good thing, right? And it's kind of how we've approached all of our products. Is you show some of the first iterations or even the sketches, and then the community kind of informs things they like or dislike. And yeah, from a design standpoint, you gotta kind of go with your gut or trust your vision, but it's very easy to add or take away some of the things that the community is overly vocal about, and I think that's awesome. Plus, like that's they can inform decisions, and they know that. So it's I think a cool thing. Look, like having overblown demand is not a bad problem. It's just a headache on like from a logistical standpoint on the back end.
totally.
But it's a good thing.
Indeed.
So on this point of demand, as well as something that you mentioned earlier about the pop-ups, where you had menswear in the front, you had kind of running apparel in the back, and you have like people with various interests coming in. My question to you is, do you have enough demand and trust as Marcus and Minted that like everything we make is super thoughtful and great, and I put a lot of like intention and care with it that you can go from jewelry to menswear to running apparel to minted supplements.
Hmm.
How does that like universe of products come together? Because I think if Jordan and I started a brand tomorrow and we launched all four of those things, people would be like, dude, what is this? Like, are you a supplement company or are you
Yeah,
a menswear company?
yeah. I think some of that trust comes from the documentation of it all,
Hmm.
and then some of it you just need time. You need to continually prove yourself time and time again that, the customers or the products your customers are buying do meet the quality standard that you talk about. Um, you know, when you're documenting behind the scenes stuff, for example, one of the jackets that we had from that menswear collection at that pop up was $1,200. But in building out that piece, I had documented me going to the garment district to pick up the fabric. It was a Loro Piana cashmere. You know, then you have to educate the customer on what Loro Piana is. Some people know, some people don't. But you can make a video talking about where is this Loro Piana cashmere coming from and why is it so expensive and you know what makes it some of the best cashmere in the world. But now it's in that jacket, right? So you have customers come in to the pop-up and get a performance piece for the marathon and then a $1,200 jacket and then walk out with pre-workout. And I mean that whole like existence
And
is
some
always
jewelry.
interesting to me,
Yeah,
but that's
jewelry to
like
go.
the world we want to build, right? And luckily our customers have trusted us enough to kind of bridge all the different areas in which we make products. And for me, reviews are important, and seeing the reviews come in that the products are continually meeting or exceeding expectation is exactly what we're trying to do. And right now we have a pen in development, and there's demand for that. Like it's just a stationary object, right? So I think a lot of it is you have to prove yourself, and if you drop the ball on the first interaction, you're kind of screwed. Like
Hmm.
we picked up at the tail end of the first pop-up when we had the menswear stuff there, we picked up a lot of people doing the, just walking around shopping in Soho that knew nothing about the brand,
Hmm.
didn't know I was affiliated with it, so they would just ask me things as like a salesman or like a floor
Yeah.
sales guy. And the best feedback that we got during that period of time when it was a little bit slower and people were kind of coming in, and even some, of the demographic I didn't think we were hitting, 40, 50-year-old men with like their kids in strollers and their wife trying on a $700 chore coat or a $1,200 jacket, and the response being like, oh, this is really well made, or like you hear them talking to their wife saying this is really well made, or the hand feels really nice. To me, it's like I'm just standing there. They think I'm a store clerk, and then they ask me like what I do for the brand. I'm like, well, I own it, but yeah, I'm happy to help however you want. So it's just like, and I think Clay would say this too, when we're designing products, like we're pretty ruthless about trying to make them as good as possible, while also being priced fairly. You can only do so much when your cashmere is $300 a yard, but
Yeah. This is it's a fascinating insight that you have, like foot traffic, actually, which we don't talk about much because it's so much digital and social. And I did a quick poll on my story and asked what people would ask you. And a guy named Johnny actually has a good question here, which I think was you were maybe just alluding to. And he said, if you had your social presence taken, what creative things would you do to be marketing Minted?
oh, that's interesting. I think more of the same. Like, is this saying I'm restarting from zero, or like I can't post any social content? I
I think it's
guess.
saying if you can't use your social content.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to go. So social to me kind of disrupted the traditional playbook. And if we're talking about like menswear specifically, let's just use that for example. You kind of have to use the more traditional playbook of getting it on people, or like more important people in the world. So assuming there's no social for anybody, it would be not like influencers. You'd have to go to like the celebrity route, right?
Yeah.
Or showrooms where stylists can pull things and like feel and see the quality of those pieces. Yeah, I mean, it would be hard, right? But you'd have to kind of revert back to the traditional playbook a little bit.
And you guys are doing run club, like you're doing a run club. I had somebody else, Griffin, ask about, they put on a race, but they had a drop in registration. Like, how do you get like loyal consumers and reach to expand to new ones? And it sounds like this kind of physical events you're doing with whether it's the run club or pop-up shops. Like, how's the run club going, and what are you
Yeah.
doing to kind of keep that fire stoked?
So I host the run club pretty much every Saturday, 8 a.m., main monument. We do the same loop, 5 miles at a 9-minute pace. And it's kind of just an extension of my training. Like I have to run anyway. And people had always asked for a run club, and I think it's cool when people pull up. There's a lot of people that pull up every single weekend, and that's awesome. You get to meet them, you get to forge friendships with them, and the nice part about New York specifically, it might be hard in smaller cities or smaller areas, but there are always people in town on business. And so a lot of these people that I will meet that I would maybe have never gotten to meet are in town because their work like is having a meeting here. So they pull up to the run club. So you're meeting people from like all over, Tokyo, Ireland. Like it's this huge gamut of people. And that to me is super cool, and it's a wonderful way to start my Saturday morning, considering I'm meeting a bunch of cool people and checking off the run box.
Yeah, I love that. Ashwin, do you want to make any petitions for him to start that on the West Side Highway, or yeah, what are your...
Yeah, we got to go rip some West Side Highway runs. I've seen you out there. I know you hit much more of a broader geography across Manhattan than I do. But yeah, we'll certainly rip it up the. I don't know that I can keep up with Marcus though. Maybe for a while, but after that, I'm toast.
Marcus, would you like to comment on Ashwin's training strategy? Ashwin does no training or running. He just rips a half marathon every Friday. Thoughts?
All right. That's an interesting strategy. Not one that I've seen out of too many people. But listen, if it works for you, it works for you.
That's right. It's no, I have no discipline around running. So I started running because it was just a good place to think. And I did longer and longer distances because I would just think more about things and work through certain problems. And so when I go for a long run, I often like tell my wife, she's like, when are you coming back? And I'm like, when I'm done working. And it's gone anywhere from like 40 minutes to 2 hours. And so that's how the the half marathon started. But no, I'm going to be prone to injury. And I also don't know my pace. I just kind of like run to think. So
No, that's the best. That's when running is at its finest. Don't get a watch. Don't get involved in any of that shit, because then it just becomes a mental mind game with yourself.
yeah, yeah, I hear that. Um,
Can I just ask, like, I'm very tactical. We talked about this at the beginning of the thing, and I saw that you had, like, for your New York Marathon, you wanted to run a 2:44.
Yeah.
I'm a obsessed golfer, and you hear a lot about, even in other sports, like Nick Saban talking about the process versus the end result. Whenever I get too focused on like the score that I'm trying to achieve at the end versus the process, like, do you have how do you balance that tension between like the number you're trying to achieve and then just like focusing in the moment to help you achieve that end goal?
Now for our unofficial sponsor, Jordan, the reason that you were late to the podcast is because you had a delivery come to your house. Can you tell us about this?
Absolutely. First, though, Ashwin, what's your cold plunge experience or contrast therapy? Are you in on this? Are you maxing?
I was early Wim Hof before people knew Wim Hof. And
Oh,
so now I'm almost out. I'm out of
yeah, yeah. This is way too trendy for you. Well, for those of you who don't know, Ashwin just rips a half marathon every Friday. If you wanted to get your recovery goals right, plunge has got you taken care of. I started doing the cold plunge last year. I started with a cold shower and then merged my way into the cold plunge, which is life changing, particularly for somebody here in Texas. But they've now expanded into saunas. And so the Brandfathers have hot takes and cold takes. Plunge has got you taken care of, whether you need cold or hot. They now have incredible saunas that can go up to 230 degrees. I can deliver it straight to your house. I have one that has just landed at my house, so I will be spending my afternoon on that.
So you have a sauna and a cold plunge now.
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome to Texas real estate, brother.
Where are you in Texas again?
I'm in Dallas.
Okay. So
And
Jordan in Dallas, he's doing meetups at his house starting this weekend.
soon, hey, Minted New York is doing run clubs every Saturday. They're building community. You better believe Jordan's going to have some contrast therapy community. I've got the gym that I started put together last year. Ashwin, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but we have backyards. That's like this thing. It's crazy. You have like a home, which also is a concept I know y'all don't.
At the Empire State Building, my backyard.
Yeah.
We don't need backyards.
In New York, it's like weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's sort of like a condo, but like it's by itself and you have space between you and the other people. And then you also then have like this grass, like you have like a big grass square with a fence around it. It's crazy. It's wild.
It sounds inefficient. It sounds like you have to water a lot of grass.
It's inefficient. Well, in fact, shout out to another partner, Synthetic Grass DFW.
Synthetic Grass DFW. Yes, if you want a putting yard and AstroTurf in your backyard, hit them
Straight up, DM me if you're interested in this. It is the best investment I ever made. I worked with them. I paid for it, but got some benefits through Synthetic Grass DFW. You can also do a putting green for like just a couple dollars more a square foot if you want. So of course I had to take them up on that. The turf is the best decision I ever made, and I do have a green thumb. I'm not afraid of trying to grow grass. Anyway, all of this is to say that Plunge now has both your cold and your hot solutions. And the tariffs are making prices go up soon. But right now, if you capitalize, you can take advantage. I'll include my link here below in whatever platform you're consuming this on. Now, back to our show.
Yeah. Well, I think the goal kind of informs the training, which is fine, right? Like that's a good thing. And very lucky to work under an insanely talented coach who's been in the game forever. And luckily, because he's so good, I can trust him and then just do the workouts he gives me. But you do have to kind of set a goal so he knows like what we're working toward. The issue I think I ran into when I first got into the sport is like you set these arbitrary time goals and I've missed time goals in so many races, it's not even funny. And you start to learn some things about the marathon specifically where like, weather plays a big role, and there's a lot of little things out of your control that you know what? Like you take what you can give on race day, and that's that. And your perfect race is coming at some point, but you still got to get out there and race and like experience it and see where your fitness is at. And I used to beat myself up a lot about missing certain time goals, and they're always generally lofty, but I think that kind of keeps me going. It's like, all right, we need to see, where is the upper end of my genetic potential, and we're gonna just work really hard to try to explore that. I think the beauty in running is like you can do a bunch of different distances, right? Like mile, 5K, half marathon, marathon. You don't have to be a marathon runner. It just kind of seems like that's all the rage, right? But I've learned over time that I really enjoy racing 10-mile half marathons. Like that is super fun. And right now, I'm training really hard for a mile. Like I really want to run a fast mile at Fifth Ave. So,
How fast?
that's I would like to go 4:15 ish.
It's Roger Bannister.
And yeah, but also like it's just you need to remind yourself like 4:15 doesn't even get you placed at a good D1 school coming out of high school.
Crazy.
Like that shit is slow compared to where real fast runners are at. So it's like I'm not a pro. I'll never be a pro. I can just only explore and take it as far as I can try to take it.
Well, you're taking your brand into great places, and you're taking a lot of people along with you, which is very cool. We appreciate that. We appreciate the time you've given us. Ashwin, is there anything else that we need to hit before we let this man of many talents go?
I mean, I think we could go hours and then increasingly get more and more niche, but we'll save that for some offline stuff. But yes, thank you so much, Marcus, for hopping on. It's been incredible to watch what you've built, and I think it's been super cool for Jordan and I and everyone listening to just like get a more of a peek behind the curtains, a peek behind the peak. So thank you for hopping on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I don't have a whole lot of opportunities to do stuff like this, so it's always nice to chop it up with other people.
I tell you what, so we have an audience of aspiring and established marketers generally, a lot of like young people who are trying to get into the industry or make their way. Any advice to your younger self or people who are trying to get into the industry or work in this kind of cool space, whether it's menswear, sports, fashion?
Yeah, well, I guess like if you're trying to get hired in and you're not trying to start something on your own, I think it's important to understand that people hire people, and like having a super polished resume and all that stuff is good, but at the end of the day, like generally people are going to hire the person that they can work next to or get along with well. So understanding EQ and all that stuff is super important. And if you're trying to start something on your own, like there's going to be a million people along the way that tell you how to do and how to execute, but there's a chance that they've never had to execute in the way that you're trying to execute. So you can take their advice and kind of parse through it and figure out what maybe you need out of it. But at the end of the day, like you're the one building, and a lot of the times when you're starting out, you have to just trust your gut. Like there is no playbook or roadmap to go back to. Just trust your gut, and it's usually going to tell you what you really need to focus on.
Touche. Hear, hear. Love that. I will double down on that. I saved a clip actually earlier this week where a gentleman who had built several companies talked about how when he did interviews, instead of talking about people's experience, he actually just looked for their passions and then would ask them about those passions to see if this person lit up, because he wanted to hire passionate people. And I do think like the experience is kind of table stakes, and it's the other thing, like, are you an interesting human? Do you have motivation? Do you have passion points? And I think so many times, especially young people, are trying to present themselves as this like really professional, but also, that's such a great line that you said, we hire humans and you hire people. And so the way that people can bring in their interests and passions will help them stand out. I think you're a great example of that. Being a curator that is then turned to creator is a really cool journey to watch. So keep up the good work, brother.
Yeah, well, thank you both. This is cool.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. You can take off, or you can sit around and yap about marketing events of the week with us if you'd like. But you
Sounds good.
Okay.
Take care, guys.
All right, thanks,
Thanks,
brother.
yeah.